It's Tuesday. You know what that means. Squared Circle Radio is on the air. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Thank you for making us your wrestling podcast to get your wrestling fix for the week. And Andy, we have a fix for everybody this week, man.
Oh, we do.
Oh, my goodness. The wrestling world is loaded. We talk about it all the time. Money in the Bank is this weekend. But we have a special treat for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's Andy York. My name is Chris Belcher. And coming up in just a minute, WWE announcer Byron Saxton will join the show. That is exactly right. Before we get to Byron, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you haven't already, we are so close to 100 subscribers. I can feel it. It's coming. It's going to happen this episode.
I have a feeling. Yeah. It's gonna happen this episode. It's got to happen this episode. It's the 30th episode.
Yes.
We need it to happen.
We need it to happen this episode because Byron needs an excuse for missing Monday Night Raw while we record.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. We've talked about it. Let's not waste any more time. You guys know the social media handles are here. You know where to catch us. Everywhere you find your podcast, make sure you're subscribed. But right now, here he comes, the man, Byron Saxton. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by WWE announcer Byron Saxton is on the show. Man, we cannot tell you enough how much we appreciate you being here.
I'm honored. I'm honored to be part of Squared Circle Radio. I believe this is episode 31.
This will be 30. We changed it up on you because we're dropping a special episode for Mr. Byron Saxton at number 30. Look at that.
That's honored to be part of the 30th episode.
That is fantastic. We appreciate you being here. And one of the things that Andy and I pride ourselves on bringing on guests, obviously you being employed by the WWE, but at the same time, a lot of people that we bring on, we want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers understand that we bring on wrestling fans first. We're not just bringing on people to talk about wrestling or that have a knowledge of wrestling. It's wrestling fans. So, Byron, I'm going to start here. What is some of your favorite wrestling memories growing up, and watching the business?
Oh man, well, growing up, I grew up in Fairfax, Virginia, so essentially Northern Virginia, just 30 minutes outside of our nation's capital, Washington D.C. I went to my very first event at the famed D.C. Armory. It was a WCW event. It was the Horsemen and Doom in a steel cage match in the main event. So I've been a fan since I was 4 years old, watching WrestleMania 3, Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant. I parlayed that into my own childhood wrestling career with the Kids Wrestling Federation.
Yep.
It just worked out to where I often was the KWF heavyweight champion.
Surprise, surprise, right?
Well, here's the deal, okay? It wasn't me just, playing politics and wanting to run the territory, but it was the fact that my friends oftentimes couldn't make it over, and I would have television tapings. Okay, I'd have my camcorder set up. I would have pay-per-views, the whole 9 yards. So if they couldn't make it, I had to play the role of about 10 different wrestlers. So of course, you had to put the strap on me.
Exactly. Listen, if you don't show up to the booking, you can't get paid, and you're not going to get over.
Exactly. So I made actually my dad paid me through his allowance money. He didn't know he was paying me my championship salary at the time. But yes, I was Big Flying Brian, KWF World Heavyweight Champion, had all my pajamas decked out with different logos and styles, had my socks pulled up to my knees, knee pads, everything you can imagine. So
did you have paper logos on regular leather belts that you wear with your pants, or how did you make your championship belts?
So I would actually go to Toys R Us at the time, eventually Kmart, and I would buy the WWF replica titles.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Get some post-it notes and some Scotch tape, and those will work wonders. Put the KWF logo on top instead. Have my tag titles, Intercontinental title.
I tell you what, Andy, I don't know about you, but wrestling as a kid, for me, the NWO spray painting the belt ruined every toy belt that I had, because every federation I had, I'm like, oh, I got to spray paint it. This will be sweet. 10 minutes later, Mom, I need a new belt.
Darn you, NWO. You ruined it all. You ruined your childhood wrestling dreams.
Oh, my goodness. So childhood wrestling dreams and watching wrestling, eventually all roads lead to the WWE, and you're here, and you have played so many roles within your time at the WWE, and we're going to talk about each one of those here in just a second. But first, explain to us and to our listeners just how important it is to be a Swiss Army knife, to be able to be relied upon and do so many roles so well in your specific position.
Well, I think it's just like any other career. The more valuable you can make yourself to that company, the longer you'll be around. I've been very fortunate and blessed to be looking at 17 years in this company in September.
Wow.
Part of that is just being able to really apply myself to any responsibility that's been placed upon me. And I really go back to when I first got signed, September 2007. Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW, which was the developmental territory at the time for WWE. And at the time that I signed, I was just coming off a career in broadcast television as a news reporter. I did news, sports, and traffic. So when I came to WWE, or was at least trying to get the WWE, on my resume tape at the time, which is now defunct, but my resume tape at the time, I had footage of me on the indies as a ring announcer, as a wrestler, as a commentator. I had my news reporting on there. So when I walked in the door to FCW, I think Dusty gravitated towards that and said, "Baby, I want you to manage. I want you to commentate. I want you to wrestle. I want you to ring announce, baby." And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, because to me, it's fun. Like maybe I have ADD or something, but I love applying myself in multiple areas because I feel like that constantly challenges you creatively. So to answer your question, the benefit, I just think if you're an employer, if you're a company, you want someone that is able to be a chameleon. Am I the best chameleon? Probably not, but I try my best at the end of the day to do whatever task that's required of me.
Well, you've certainly been a great chameleon so far, 17 years with the WWE and all these different roles, which we're going to talk about. Before we get to that first role, I have to ask, you got a good Dusty story you can tell us? Obviously, you worked with him very closely for a long time. You got a good Dusty story for us?
Tell you what, so one of my most enjoyable memories with Dusty was back in FCW, when we were kind of transitioning into those NXT days. But Dusty, I used to help Dusty lead promo class. And I would help Dusty work with some of the talent in terms of developing their names, kind of figuring out what direction they want to go in. And Dusty always had these outside the box ideas for promo class to kind of just explore your creativity. So one trick he always did was that if you were a talent that was maybe struggling verbally, he would go, "Okay, baby, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I want you to act like a chicken." and people, and like, I would see the different reactions all throughout the years. And you see like guys and girls who are like, "Sorry, what? What?" "Act like a chicken." Bok, bok. And so like everyone treats it differently. Like, how do I talk? And they're trying to ask follow-up questions. "Baby, I told you what to do. You got 1 minute. Let's go." They won't even let you think about it. "Let's go." We always have someone timing it. Boom. And the whole point of the drill was to see how you can emote, how you can tell a story without actually cutting a basic promo. So it really forces you to think outside the box, but it also forces you to make a fool of yourself. And as we all know, as fans of this industry, if you're willing to make a fool of yourself, if you're willing to be vulnerable, if you're willing to check your ego at the door, it allows you to achieve so much more because you don't put limits on what you can accomplish. So that's one Dusty experience. I'll tell you a second one. Going right back on that kind of narrative of outside the box, Dusty had an idea that for promo class, again, in order for us to feel more comfortable trying something else with our characters, so to speak, he decided that we would put on plays. And he tasked me with the responsibility of directing and producing these plays featuring our talent. So one of them we did was our own adaptation of Coming to America. and I had to literally, like, I've got posters, got little flyers on the wall at the FCW arena for like casting calls, who wants to try out for this certain role. And we did it. We would literally have rehearsals after practice that night for Coming to America. And Dusty gave us deadlines. Maybe I want it by April 15th, tax day or whatever, But it was so much fun because it was one of those like, he really wants us to do this? Like, okay, I guess we are doing this. And I'm sitting at home, I'm writing a script. I had someone else as like my PA to put this whole thing together. It was a pretty significant operation. But it was so rewarding I think we ended up doing, it might've been like 45 minutes long or whatever, but we took all the major scenes. We of course used some creative liberty on how we casted some of the men and women who were a part of it, but it was really fun. Like we did that. We did Young Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
Prison Break. I won't go into detail about that one. Yeah, it was just working with Dusty, man. Like you see why he's had such an impact on so many superstars throughout the years. I mean, there's like generations of men and women who have been influenced by Dusty because he had that ability to tap into, Chris, what do you like? What do you need to be motivated? Andy, what do you need for me to push you over the hump? And by doing that, like, you not only earned people's respect, but you saw the success come out in the ring.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, this whole generation of superstars was kind of laid by Dusty. And so seeing, Seth and Roman and obviously Cody and guys and girls like that, just absolutely amazing to see the things that he invested in them coming to life on screen and being megastars now.
Dusty was such a visionary. I'll never forget when Roman Reigns made his debut on FCW television. I was there with him and he said, baby, that's a star right there. That man is going to be a star. And I mean, well, obviously we've seen what Roman's gone on to do. Surefire, first ballot Hall of Famer. But that, again, Dusty just knew.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He just, his first match on FCW television, Dusty knew he was going to be a star.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's so amazing.
So, obviously you've had a long time as commentating and different roles like that. And as the only person here to not commentate a professional wrestling match, what prep?
See your way out, bro.
Yeah, I know.
Commentators only.
I know. I've called like WWE 2K games in my mind as I'm playing them, but other than that, what prep goes into commentating, whether it's for a Raw or SmackDown or NXT Level Up or a pay-per-view or even like a pre-show? What kind of prep goes into everything?
They're all different, but all the same. I'll bring up this example. When I first got called up back in 2009 to do ECW on Sci-Fi at the time, I remember someone in the television office in Stanford sent me a couple DVDs and said, here, you can watch a couple past shows on DVD and kind of prep for it. This is before stuff was showing up on YouTube and everything. So that's all I had. As the industry has changed and as the company has evolved, so has the way we prep. So we went from having just Raw and SmackDown to now having digital shows, to now having a very large digital imprint on all our social media platforms. So, if you're getting ready for Raw or SmackDown, you got to really keep tabs on all that. Our guys are doing interviews, they're tweeting stuff, they're putting out Instagram posts. You're just trying to pull from it all. So all throughout the week, that's what you're doing. If you just wait till you show up on Monday or Friday, it's like you're behind the eight ball. You got to be on top of this stuff all week. So that's really the essence of prepping to do commentary. We look at a show like Level Up that I'm currently doing. Same premise for preparation, but different level of storytelling. Because if you're calling Raw and you got the Judgment Day, you're dealing with the Bloodline, like these are built-in stories that we're seeing progress episodically every single week. So you can really tap into that to use that to kind of further whatever you're going to say on commentary. When you're doing a show like Level Up, oftentimes we've got people having their first match, or they've only had a handful of matches. So you're playing a large part in introducing these men and women to the audience. So same level of prep, but I also find myself spending a lot of time talking to those wrestlers because, hey, like you're just like Dusty would try to pull stuff out of new talent. I'm having to do the same thing. Hey, tell me about your background. Tell me about your siblings. Did you have any hobbies? And what can we do to cultivate that? So different type of prep, like I said, for a show like Level Up as opposed to doing commentary, but you're still having to be on top of what everybody's doing and what everybody's saying all throughout the week. So you might be able to bring something forward.
which is really interesting because you talked prep all week long. If you come in and you're behind the 8 ball, if you don't keep up, but Byron, the shows are live and there's no safety net. And no matter how much you prep, things can go out the window really, really fast. So in the moment, let's say you're, whether it's play-by-play or color, and things go awry, what kind of things are you looking for to pick up on in the moment? You know, you don't know, you're getting a shield power bomb through the table right in front of you. You know, just things that you're not aware of. Are you looking for certain things to pick up on? Is it the crowd? What kind of things are you trying to adapt with?
So I will use the analogy of being an NFL quarterback, right? All throughout the week, you've got your team meetings, offense, defense, everybody's talking about a game plan. You walk into that game with a game plan. Mm-hmm. But if you just stick to that game plan for 4 quarters and nothing else, what's likely to happen?
You're going to lose.
Probably going to lose a game.
Yep.
Same thing with WWE. I will prep. Sometimes I over prep. That's just how I am. But you go in knowing you may face the unexpected. You probably will face the unexpected. So you go based on that foundation of knowledge that you have coming in, but also you have that wiggle room to go, I'm going to adjust based on what's happening right there.
Sure.
You know, the key to commentary is don't stare at the ring, although it sounds weird. You stare at your monitor because the monitor is what the fan sees.
Yep.
So I have to bring the knowledge that I've obtained throughout the week and yet still be a fan in that moment and absorb what's happening before me. You know, if Dominic Mysterio is, you know, wrestling Chad Gable and I've got some background information on Dominic Mysterio I want to give out, but then Liv Morgan comes marching down the aisle, who cares like what Dominic did when he was 10 years old? I got to focus on like what's happening here.
Yep.
But that's, so again, yeah, you just have to be ready. You have to expect to be able to change and go with the flow. And sometimes the show changes literally. Sometimes it's changing as you're on the air. And again, you just have to be able to pivot.
So as doing commentary and everything else, you've obviously had a lot of moments that you've been a part of. But the one that automatically comes to mind is WrestleMania 35, watching Kofi win the WWE Championship, beating Daniel Bryan. Just the whole Kofi-Mania build was amazing. But getting to call that moment, how special was that?
It was extremely special on multiple levels for me. On a personal level, having known Kofi since I first started in the company. I remember when I came to FCW, Kofi got called up to ECW a few months after that. But Kofi was one of those guys who never changed. He was the same guy that I met in Tampa, Florida, that would eventually go on to become WWE champion. The same guy who, you know, was having food fights with us at a local buffet after practice. And yet one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Like he's always been that humble, kind, giving guy. So when you see just a good person achieve something so great, you can't help but be proud for them. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is in that moment of recognizing the magnitude of what was happening. And I'll harken back to when Ron Simmons became world heavyweight champion, defeating Vader. I think it was 92, maybe. 91, 92, somewhere around there.
Yep. Maybe even 93, something like that.
Don't check Wikipedia. You can't cheat. But just seeing the joy that brought the fans, especially our black fans who saw someone who looked like them. You know, it's the first time I saw someone who looked like me become a world champion. Then the third aspect of it was my dad. Because, you know, at the time my dad was very sick, so he didn't get to actually see the match. But I knew, like, as proud as he was never a wrestling fan, but he was so thrilled to hear that Ron Simmons became world champion. Mm-hmm. And so to now have this moment happen again with me at the event, calling the match. And I just knew, even though he wouldn't be able to watch it, like how proud he would have been of that moment. So I think all that combined made it something I'll never forget. And made me, I mean, I was literally tearing up when he won won the WWE title, because that's how special like that moment was for me personally. And again, just thinking about everyone else and all the kids who might be inspired and moved by that very moment, just it all hit.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually in the building for that, and it was you could feel the emotion in the building as long as that show seemed, and as long as it did go on, it was that moment. That's the one that sticks out. I mean, Seth Rollins winning was cool, Becky Lynch winning was cool, but Kofi winning, like that was it. And throughout that time and throughout your career on commentary, one of the things that I've taken from your career is your chemistry with Corey Graves. You guys just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you guys have the 24/7 title is still at stake and you guys are still at war over
I
it.
defeated him for.
Yes, you did. Yes. Okay. But throughout the rivalry and the picking at each other, all the things, incredible chemistry. How cool is it to be able to work with Corey and just all the things that he brings to the table?
Yeah, Corey, I mean, he was there in the trenches down in FCW, so I've known him for a long, long time. And we both kind of encountered that similar road where our careers came to an end kind of abruptly. Him, obviously, for medical reasons. But listen, you know, he was one of those guys who we talked about being able to adapt and be a chameleon, and he adapted. He was frustrated that his career wasn't going a certain way. He was obviously frustrated that his in-ring career had come to an end. And instead of kind of, you know, being the bitter Betty and walking away, he went, no, this is a new door that's open for me on commentary. I can talk. Let me give it a shot. And I mean, he killed it, and he continues to kill it. So I think our dynamic was cool just because it was just there. Like, we never sat there and went, oh, you're going to say this and I'm going to say this and we're going to argue. Like, it just
right.
It happened on air is what happened on air between us.
That's great.
So I have to ask, because it's just a moment that has gone down in history. Raw and SmackDown still taking place during the pandemic at the Performance Center in front of no fans in the beginning. Everybody was still trying to figure out what was happening, what was going on. One, how was it trying to call a show with no fans, which is the main aspect of a wrestling show, is the audience reaction and everything? And two, how was it taking that Stone Cold Stunner in front of no fans on TV as well?
So number one, it wasn't that weird for me, believe it or not. And the reason why I say that is because you mentioned WWE 2K, which I've been fortunate enough to do commentary for the last few years. Well, when we're doing these voiceover sessions, you have piped in crowd noise and I got a headset on. Sometimes you have no crowd noise and it's just my voice. So it was really just an easy pivot to go, okay, normally, again, when you're calling a show with a packed crowd, obviously you hear the crowd, but you don't hear everything in detail because, again, you're hearing your commentary partners, you're hearing your producer or whatever in your headsets. So it wasn't that huge of an adjustment. I still had to focus solely on the monitor, focus solely on what was happening in the ring, and focus on what my partners were saying. Mm-hmm. And a crowd or lack thereof was just that supplemental aspect that really didn't, change my mindset. The second part, getting stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin. Holy fudge. Yeah, like, that was not on my bingo card ever in my life. It was wild, man. What can you say? I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, I was that kid in high school walking around with jeans and combat boots like everybody was wearing during the Attitude Era. I was, I remember I had a high school friend of mine named Damien. Like, how like you watch someone enough and you start being influenced by them, even though you may not realize it. Yep. So I noticed, like, at lunch, I'd be eating my Chex Mix and I'm talking to him. All of a sudden, every time he gets mad, he's like, yeah. Like, would you stop acting like Stone Cold Steve Austin? I'm not acting like Stone Cold. What? Your head never bobbled like that before. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, he's the GOAT, man. Like, he's one of the greatest of all time. So it was an honor. Now I say that, but it was also awkward because I'm not really a drinker. I've had one sip of beer my entire life. To go from that to like chugging global television was a bit of a culture shock for me. I was like, am I gonna like regurgitate? Am I I got to choke on this. Like my body's just not used to putting this substance in my system. So it was almost like getting stun relieved me to not have to drink any more beer. But it was super cool. I did have a black eye after the fact because a lot of people talk about the fact that Steve caught me in the disco ball.
Yep.
But what really was painful was the fact that at one point I'm laying in the ring and
oh no,
Steve had obviously a number of his drinks, and as the cans are being tossed in the ring, one misses his hand and
oh no!
My God.
That was the worst part of the whole experience. Was leaving the performance center that night, not only smelling like alcohol, but having a black eye because I got hit by a beer can.
Oh my goodness!
And then just as icing on the cake, so I had to drive back to Tampa that night. I remember talking to my mom on the phone. She goes, "You better be careful. If you get pulled over,
oh no!
I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm reeking a beer. Black eye." And I want to go, "No, officer, I've not been drinking. It's just my new cologne." So, that was the experience being done by Stone Cold Steve Austin and Becky Lynch that night as well.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's right. And then a couple of years later, you took another one in front of about 80,000 people at AT&T Stadium, WrestleMania 38, which we were there for.
We were.
Which was
how many WrestleManias have you been to?
I've been to one. You've been to
38
the one.
Was the only one I've been to.
I've been to 4.
Okay.
I've been to 34, 35, 38, and 39.
All right.
So it's one of those things. We talked about being a wrestling fan as a kid earlier. It's one of those things. I'm from a small town in Eastern Kentucky. So watching wrestling and renting videotapes growing up, going to Blockbuster and renting all the WrestleManias and watching them, my perspective was always, man, I've been to local shows at my high school gym and all this, but I could never get there. Well, when I became an adult and I was old enough, I was like, I can actually get there. It's within driving distance and I can pay for a ticket. So it was go big or go home. And,
awesome.
That's me. And, just making sure that I get to experience those things that I always thought I couldn't,
Yeah. Life's short. You have to.
Exactly. We talked about, as we get ready to wind down here, we've talked about how you've been in the WWE for 17 years now. You've seen things come and you've seen them go. You've seen changes, the likes of which not a lot of people have seen. In at least past couple of years, we've seen a change in leadership. And not to go into detail and anything like that, but I do want to ask, because you're there every day. And a lot of people talk about this, whether it's wrestlers or commentators or journalists for that matter, that the atmosphere is different, that it just feels different. From your perspective, how has the atmosphere changed in the last couple of years?
I'd say that it's given new opportunity to a lot of people to put a fresh coat of paint on an existing product, which you have to do. If you look at the history of our business, that's what we've always done, from the days of the WWF to rock and wrestling, to the Attitude Era. We've always had to evolve with time. So our current leadership is really just the latest evolution of what our business is. And I think for a lot of men and women, especially coming up from NXT, it's a whole lot different than it would have been 5 or 10 years ago. Because look, I'll go back to my experience in FCW, and I'm sure it felt the same way for guys who were in Deep South or OVW. You almost felt like you're on an island all by yourself, and you always wondered, hey, like, does WWE know what's going on? Like, do they know what I'm doing? Are they really watching my progression? And now we bridged that gap between the current iteration of NXT and the Performance Center and WWE. So what you're seeing is that a lot of people feel like they have a better idea of kind of what's expected of them in NXT. And then when they come up, they continue to see that expectation that, initially was placed upon them. And then for like current talent who are on Raw or SmackDown, same thing. I think there's a better idea of, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm trying to be. This is where we're going. And when you have a better idea of kind of what you're looking to be, or what the company wants you to be, I think it makes going to work a whole lot more enjoyable because you're not second guessing everything. Now, granted, again, it's wrestling, sports entertainment, so things change at the drop of a dime.
Absolutely,
plans change, hearts get broken, frustration happens. Like that'll never go away. But I think now there's just a clearer path for a lot of people in terms of who they are and what they want to accomplish. And I think you're seeing that replicated in the product itself, to where you're seeing more patience behind development.
Yeah.
Development of characters, development of stories, and also like just giving little nuggets to people out there. They can kind of research on their own and go, wait a minute, I saw that in the background. What does that mean? I saw this, and maybe it's on purpose, maybe it's not, but it makes you think. And if we can make you think and continue to emotionally invest you in what we're doing, then we're doing something right. So it's been a really fun time for me just to see how things have changed really over the last decade or so. The locker room has changed, attitudes have changed, and obviously the business continues to grow.
Absolutely. And the business is growing more than ever.
Yeah.
Right
and as it's growing, as you're going to, Clash at the Castle and being in
Berlin.
Yeah, Berlin, and being in France and all these different places, you can see the global impact WWE has. I just have to ask, though, because you were there in person, how loud was that crowd at Backlash?
Honestly, I did the whole tour that week.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in Italy. I remember that crowd is massive. France obviously was unbelievable. Arguably the top crowd I've ever witnessed.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Arguably. And then the thing that got me was that we did a kickoff show, or we did a press conference before SmackDown that day, and they were losing their minds. Then we did SmackDown, and they're still losing their minds. Then we did the PLE, and I'm like, when are they going to run out of fuel? The show ends. We are on the bus headed back to the hotels, and there they are in the parking lot. Da, 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 da. I'm like, how much caffeine have you guys had? Like,
All I know is I don't know what they were chanting at AJ Styles. I just had that song stuck in my head for the next week. Every time I saw him on screen, I was doing it in my head and dancing at home because it's stuck with me now.
It's a song. I think it's a song called "Phenomenal." I believe.
Yeah, I believe so. Okay. Yeah.
But I love it. It's still stuck in my head. Like we were sitting in catering, and we were like, every time someone walks up to our table, da 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 da, we started popping ourselves to it. But that crowd was unbelievable, and you saw it in Scotland as well. It was. I've never seen fans that rabid for that many days in a row consistent. It was unreal.
That's so crazy. That's insane. So obviously, like, the future of the business is so bright. The state of the world of wrestling could not be in a better place. WWE continues to captivate fans each and every week. I mean, Andy and I we're those background watchers. We're glued to what's in the background. What kind of clue are they going to drop us? We talk about that kind of stuff all the time.
The QR code.
Yes. This is the QR code guy.
I was
right
all
here.
over it. I still am looking all over the place for the next just the next little hint of it.
It's so good. So wrestling is so captivating, and so much so that it inspires a whole other generation of people that want to get into the business. If you had to give advice for somebody, whether it's commentary, whether it's wrestling, managing, what have you, what kind of advice would you give somebody looking to get into the wrestling business?
First advice is to make sure you love it. I always tell, especially aspiring wrestlers, to check out a local wrestling school, a quality school, but see this business at its most bare bones level, without the pyro, the huge crowd, the lights, the music, all the fanciness. Like, if you go to a wrestling school or go to an independent show that has 20 fans out there, and if you still decide this is what you want to do, boom, go after it. And again, whether it's as a wrestler, whether it's as a commentator, whatever, never stop learning. never stop absorbing information, because there's always something to learn. I make mistakes all the time. I continually learn all the time. It's the first day on the job approach. I like to tell people, treat every day like it's your first day. Mouth shut, ears open. There's always something you can pick up, always something you can learn. And like I mentioned earlier, business is constantly changing. Yep. So the business is constantly changing. It forces us to constantly change how we perform, how we prepare. And if you fail to do that, then you're probably going to be seeing your way out the door sooner than later. But that's the biggest advice. Just love it and never stop learning. Stay humble. Treat other people well. Those basic facets of humanity and life, obviously. But make sure you really, really want to do this, because you guys have been following this forever. So it's a very tough business, but it's a very rewarding business. It's rewarding in the sense that you really, for me, you have the opportunity to change and impact so many lives. You have the opportunity to be that escape for families from their everyday grind or troubles, and they can live vicariously through us for those 2 or 3 hours. That to me is such an incredible blessing, but it's an incredible responsibility as well. But just listen to your heart. If you want to do it, go after it, and learn as much as you can.
It's incredible advice. He is at Byron Saxton on Twitter, at official Byron Saxton on Instagram. Make sure you give him a follow. Man, we can't thank you enough for taking some of your time out of your day and missing Monday Night Raw as we record on Mondays. We appreciate it so much.
I got to read all the spoilers, okay?
Listen,
I can't watch the show. I'm not going to be able to talk to my friends tomorrow.
Well, listen, you're not going to be prepared to go in and comment because you're missing the show. That's it.
Oh, gosh. Thank goodness for DVRs.
Yeah. That's it.
There you go.
That's it. Byron, thank you so much, man. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to be part of the 30th episode of Squared Circle Radio.
Couldn't have said it any better than that. That's it. You got it.
Thanks, guys.
Man, Byron Saxton. Man, I am grateful for his time. I'm grateful for his insight. What a fun interview for the show.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks to Byron for coming on and just giving us a peek behind the curtain of what it's like to not only be in the world of WWE behind the scenes, but being a part of commentary and everything else, just getting that perspective of it. It's always fascinating to see that side of it. So that was amazing.
And wrestling is on fire, as we said during the interview. It's at a place right now that many argue that it's never been before. Mm-hmm. I won't go as far to say that, but it is certainly red hot right now. And Byron has seen so much of it over the last 17 years. Just a great guest to be able to speak to where wrestling has come from and where it is now.
Yeah. It was a great perspective to see, like you said, he's been there for a while, getting that feedback, getting that perspective of what he's seen and the transition and everything else is just awesome to see. So that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. And if you thought it was a lot of fun, tweet him at Byron Saxton on Twitter, and he's at official Byron Saxton on Instagram. Let him know that you enjoyed his episode, on Squared Circle Radio. Tell him to come back. We'll have him again. We'll have loads of conversations. You could tell we could talk about Kid Wrestling Federation all day long.
Oh, yeah.
We can talk about the old stuff. It's a great conversation. Not just because he can give us insight, and that's always the best guess.
Yeah.
That's when we have the most fun. It's when we can just have a conversation.
Talk about wrestling.
Yeah, that's
the most important thing.
So this Tuesday episode is very special. You guys know that Money in the Bank is coming up this weekend. Well, guess what? We're going to drop another episode for you on Thursday where we're going to preview Money in the Bank. We want to make sure to give Byron his time, make sure we're respectful of his time, and make sure that you guys are able to just take in everything that he says. And then we're going to come back this Thursday and preview Money in the Bank. So what that means, the MCWF for this week, we're going to push it back another week so you guys will be able to enjoy that next week. So Byron interview on Tuesday, and then Money in the Bank preview on Thursday.
Yeah, a loaded week. A very loaded week.
Would it be a week in the world of wrestling? It wasn't if it wasn't loaded.
No. You had Forbidden Doors past week. You got Money in the Bank this weekend. You got who knows what's happening next weekend. It's going to be a wild time.
So much. We're going to break it all down for you this coming Thursday on our Current Product Show. Again, let Byron know how much you appreciate him being on our show. I know we have done that. We're going to continue to do that. We appreciate his time very much. All right. For Andy York, my name is Chris Belcher. This has been yet another edition of the Squared Circle Radio. Episode number 30 is in the books. Thursday, Money in the Bank preview. Don't miss it.